Good afternoon, this is DK here from Mr. V Amps with a Fender Sidekick Bass 50. Okay, so there's some lousy demonstration. This was a Craigslist find. It was dirty and smelled like a basement and needed some minor repairs. The previous owner tried to sell it to Guitar Center and they wouldn't buy it because the power switch would not turn off. Functionally it was there, but it needed a bath, and the best advice I can give to anybody selling used gear, whether you're selling it yourself or anything like that, clean your stuff. Clean it. Go to the dollar store, buy some LA's Totally Awesome cleaner, which will clean like 100 amps for $1, and scrub the dirt off of these things. Get them to look as nice as they can. And that Tolex, the reason it looks so good is I put Armor All on it, just like you would for a car. Car maintenance products usually work great on amplifiers, and we've got it functionally correct, sounds fine, adequately loud, it puts out a lot of bass, it gets plenty of things chattering down here in the basement, and hey, it's a pretty cool amp. I was not familiar with these. These were from the 80s. This is a 1984, and these were made in Japan when CBS was trying to get Fender out of bankruptcy or keep them out of bankruptcy or something. This was during that sort of dark era when Fender stuff wasn't made in the States so much anymore. But anyway, we will skip on to taking a look at it as I found it, taking it apart, and getting it fixed. But she's working good now. Hello everyone. Welcome to the junk bin that is my work area right now. That's okay, we have a thing here. Looks like a Fender blackface amp, but it's a counterfeit, kind of not. It is really a Fender product, but it wasn't made in the United States. This was made in Japan in the 80s. I think this was when Fender was trying to get their head out of the water from their bankruptcy. This is a Sidekick Bass 50, and it's said to have very minor issues. The biggest issue I see or notice is it smells like a basement and it's kind of dirty. The Tolex is pretty good, except for on the bottom it's got some nicks and dings, and this is untested. It just I bought it for a song because there's allegedly a problem with it, and we'll talk about what that is in a second. We'll go off the tripod and take a look. Okay, so we have input, volume, master. So I'm assuming volume and master are preamp and power amp. Treble, middle, bass, and presence. And over there, on, off, and the Fender Musical Instruments logo. This one is on casters. I don't know if it came that way stock or not. I'll try to look and find out. Tolex up here is in pretty good shape, and it's not tremendously filthy till you get to the bottom of it. The bottom of it's kind of gross. Let's look and see what we have in here. Darkness. Now, we'll turn on our light here, take a look around with the lamp. We do have some nice dust here. But we have power transformer over there. There's a headphone jack way in there where you can't get it. That's smart. A line out. A to and a from input, so that's like an effects loop. And we do have a plug for our speaker. And I think this is a later one, because the earlier ones are a little different, I believe. Then we have our warning about don't take it apart. Fender Musical Instruments, division of CBS, Fullerton, California, made in Japan. So, okay. Let's look at one other thing before we start tearing into it. Just taking a look behind our grill, which is made of wood, and it's a little dirty, but it should be okay. There's not a lot of holes in it. We have more dirt, a big ported closed speaker cabinet with a 15-inch driver in it. And the driver looks to be in good condition. That doesn't really mean anything until we actually test it. But we'll be taking the driver out and checking it, and going to be taking the amp out of the cabinet and checking it. And what's really already gotten me sad is just putting a small little screwdriver to pop the faceplate off. This is apparently extremely thin sheet metal that bends at like nothing, so I'll put that back, but this lip is really cheap sheet metal. We'll see if everything else is really cheap sheet metal or what the story is. Okay, back in a few. Okay, so we're back on the tripod, and allegedly this power switch is the problem. Allegedly. I was told it won't turn off. It's always on, regardless of what you do. So let's see if it actually explodes when we plug it in. This is the first time I plugged it in. Okay, so I plugged it in, and the switch is in the off position, and it appears to be off. I turn it on, and it doesn't turn on. So, what the heck? Okay, that would explain it. My power bank behind me is not turned on, so there is no power applied to my cord. So if there's no power here, you're not going to get power, or if there's no power coming back from the wall. One moment, please. Okay, there we go. We've applied power from the wall now. And despite the switch being in the off position, the LED seems to stay on, regardless of which position it's in. But it does make a popping noise. So maybe it's just, I think it probably just is the switch. But let's check it for function. Plug a cord in here. Let's turn our master volume to maybe 4. Turn our main volume to 3 or 4. Okay, so with touching it, I get some buzz. Let's turn our gain up. Okay, so we get buzz and noise. And all of our tone stack was all turned down to 0, so let's just turn our tone stack up to 8 or whatever, so it's not drowning anything out. Okay. Okay. So we seem to get plenty of noise through it, and these don't seem to crackle, and they seem to turn nicely. We're going to put a little bit of cleaner in them anyway. But we're going to take this apart to clean all of the goobers and rust and funk out of it. So that's what we're going to do, and we'll see you when we got it apart. Okay, so I have the speaker out of the cabinet. It just says Fender Musical Instruments Special Design Speaker, with no other numbers that I can see anywhere on it. So I'm just going to assume this is some speaker made by somebody in Japan, whoever assembled the amplifier. Well, put it down over there. And then inside of our cabinet it is particle board, and the tube appears to be hardened cardboard. Yeah, at least the speaker was attached by T-nuts on the other side. Kind of chintzy T-nuts, but I'm actually surprised at how thin this baffle is. A chipboard baffle that's a ½ an inch thick. They put small cleats on this all over the place. There are cleats and stuff in there. I don't know. So it's like it was built to a price point. But hey, I've had 50 watt solid state bass amps before that did pretty well. Let's get the chassis out of there and see what we got. Well, the chassis is out, and looks like a very simple amplifier. Got one circuit board here. Got appears to be a bridge rectifier. Some stuff in here that they didn't bother to put in because it probably didn't apply to this model. Some big filter caps. Some power resistors. A couple of diodes. I think this is just a shield or something for the input jack. A bunch of small transistors, and back here are the big power transistors on their heat sinks. The rust on the bottom of the cabinet, and when we flip it around, the rust here confirms why this smells like a basement. It was probably stored in a quite moist environment. We'll do what we can to clean that stuff up. We'll take a little bit of chrome cleaner to it, which usually removes the rust, and then we'll put like a light coat of oil on it, which should stop it from any further rust for a long darn while. So we're still going to take the chrome off the rest of the cabinet and finish giving it a bath. So this is a big giant dose of what the heck. This is our switch, and somebody bridged it? It's bridged in here. Did it just not work at all and somebody decided to solder a thing across it? I don't know. What's up with that? That explains why the switch didn't work. It made popping noises when I flipped it. What in the heck? Does this even need a switch? Don't know. It doesn't look like anybody's been in here, and I'm almost wondering if somebody just made a janky mistake here. When I hit that with the clipper to clip one side, I figured I'd have to clip the other because it was all soldered together, but then it just fell off. So it was just touching on one side. Like somebody stuck way too much wire through there when they soldered it and then didn't clip the excess, and then somehow it managed to finagle its way up to touch. What the heck? Let's test this. Okay, so I have the meter on continuity beep. We're off. Now we're on. Now we're off. Now we're on. Off. On. I think the switch works. What in the world? Sorry for the blur. But I don't think this amp needed anything more than me to clip that bridge. And I'll plug it in and double check it, but now proceed to clean it up. This is the easiest repair on planet Earth. Goodness gracious. Okay, so I put a bunch more time into this, and the cabinet's all been cleaned up and shined. It's actually, if you're selling used anything, or pre-owned anything, it doesn't matter what you want to call it, the best thing you can do for the value of your instrument is to actually clean it up. A wise man once told me you can't sell used cars with dirty windows. And I also cleaned a bunch of the rust off of here. It looks a little wonky. This was done with a sander, but if you feel it to the touch, it's smooth. And this is the underside of the chassis where you're not even going to see it. But if you ever put your hand back there to plug in or unplug the speaker and it just feels like a big ball of rust, that sucks. Nobody likes that. And after I finished sanding it down, I put a light coat of oil on it so it'll quit rusting. Inside, I'm going to work on that a little bit. The two things we found with this was that weird bridge on the power switch. Got that out of there. Now the power switch works normally. I wonder if that was actually like that from day one. Second thing we found was on our power transistors down here. One of them was not screwed tightly down to the heatsink so it could wobble around. And if it wobbles around, then it doesn't make good contact and will get too warm and potentially fail if the amp is left on for long sessions. This apparently is January of 1984. Okay. And all of the solder work and components and everything in here look just fine. I didn't find any issue. Here, this blank space looks like a reverb, so I'm guessing this circuit board could be used also for a guitar amp. Save on printing circuit boards, I guess. So at this point I'm going to finish cleaning, reassemble it, and we'll do our demo. We'll probably put our demo first. So, but it's all cleaned up and looking pretty good here. We just have to clean on the inside, but the bottom and all that other stuff's all cleaned up. Get her back together and make sure it works good, and send it down the lane to either into my collection for a while or to somebody who needs a bass amp affordably. Thanks for watching.